Welcome in to Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. On today's show, it is a rumors mailbag. You have questions. I have answers. Before we get to this week's mailbag, though, if you like the Rams, 49ers, or Cardinals, this is not the show for you. If you hate any of those teams, like the video. Show your hatred of either Rams, 49ers, or Cardinals, any of those teams, by liking today's video. And we issued a challenge earlier in the week. We said if we didn't get to 500 likes in a certain video that we would become a Rams channel. You delivered. That is not happening. So keep on that support as we continue here on this Like a YouTube Video month here on Seahawks Today. First question comes from Raw Hector. Raw Hector wants to know, could the Seahawks trade into the top 3 in next year's draft? And using the hashtag Seahawks as well as Papa Jones. Don't know why Seahawk fans want to call me their daddy, but whatever. Anyways, with that said, this first question of will the Seahawks jump into the top 3? I hate to say this. I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say this, but the Seahawks might not need to trade into the top 3 in next year's draft. They might already be there. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm one that unless there's a player that you just fall in love with, that you cannot do without for whatever reason, I don't like trading up in the draft unless you have that one guy. As of right now, granted, the draft's still a long time from now, there's not somebody that I'm just looking at that the Seahawks have to absolutely have and give up a lot of capital to get at this point. So could it happen? Maybe, but they might not need to. They might just get there on their own merits personally. Next question comes from trying to judge yo engine by yo paint job. Well, that's interesting. Do you think Coby Bryant will take one of those starter spots? That is with the Seahawks defensive backfield. Let's look at Coby Bryant's numbers last year in college at Cincinnati. Still blows my mind that this guy fell all the way to the 4th round after winning the Jim Thorpe Award. 3 interceptions last year, 11 pass breakups. He was terrific, helping Cincinnati reach the college football playoff as the first non-Power 5 school to ever make the playoff. And when you look at the Seahawks defensive back depth chart, Trey Brown's back. Sidney Jones is expected to be the number 2 corner with Justin Coleman there. But look, all the talk that's been about Coby Bryant, the expectation, the hype around this guy, I think there's a good chance that he moves into the fold. And we've seen Pete Carroll, historically speaking, show that the best man is going to get the job, that he's not afraid to give later round guys an opportunity, that just because you're drafted somewhere does not mean you are not going to get a shot on this Seahawks team. So if Coby Bryant can prove himself, I think he very well could be a starter for the Seahawks in that defensive backfield. Maybe not day one, but I think that by the end of the season, he'll work his way into being one of those starting 3 cornerbacks for the Seahawks at the end of the year. I think so. You guys, if you think Coby Bryant will have a big year this year, we couldn't pass this up. Type 24. Of course, spam the comments with 24 for Coby Bryant if you think that he will have a big 2022. Got to honor Coby, right? Always. The OG Coby Bryant, that is. Type 24 if you think that he is going to have a big year. This is our pinned comment today. You're about to get an ad break. Take advantage of it. While that ad's playing, type 24 in the comment section below. Next question comes from Batman Fan 20. Batman wants to know, should the Seahawks re-sign Carlos Dunlap? Look, Carlos Dunlap is a very good player. Had a solid 2021 with 8.5 sacks and 35 tackles, as well as 8 tackles for loss last year. But with the direction that we're seeing the Seahawks defense go under new defensive coordinator Clint Hurtt, there's not really a spot for Carlos Dunlap in this defense. They released him not because of money, but because they didn't really see where he would fit with this group, personnel-wise. If the Seahawks were still running the same 4-3 defense they ran a year ago, they would have easily brought back Carlos Dunlap. But that's simply not the case. So although Dunlap's a good player and still remains available and I think could probably more than likely end up in Carolina, go back home there. I think that's where he'll end up here. As good of a player as he is, that's just not the direction the Seahawks are going at this point in time. But very good question there on that front. Next question comes from Hunter Byron, not Hunter Biden. The question goes, who do you think will have the most touchdowns this year, DK Metcalf included? I think D. Estridge might if he has a breakout year and if he gets the number 3 spot. I like D. D's going to have a good year for the Seahawks, but it's got to be DK Metcalf, right? 12 touchdowns last year, almost 1,000 yards. He is your leading receiver. It would shock me if DK Metcalf is somehow not the guy that doesn't get all those touchdown grabs, that isn't your leading touchdown maker. When you look at the running backs, things are going to be split between Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker when it comes to those touchdowns. DK is clearly the guy. And when you look at the quarterback situation for the Seahawks with Drew Lock and Geno Smith, they're going to depend a lot on DK Metcalf's size because, as you guys know, size matters. And so, with that said, I think DK Metcalf, although that quarterback play is going to drop off significantly in 2022 for the Seahawks, DK Metcalf will still have a very big year, assuming that he's back, that they can get an extension done, and that he returns to Seattle. Got a great deal for my Seattle Seahawks viewers of Seahawks Today. We are selling a T-shirt and long sleeve combination, and the best part about it, it is only 25% off just for you. Get your hands on this now, right in time for football season, so you can be looking sharp before kickoff and make all your friends jealous that you got the best Seahawks gear. You can get it now, chatsports.com/Seahawks combo. That's chatsports.com/Seahawks combo to get you this snazzy looking combo of T-shirt and long sleeve so you are dressed for every occasion in the best Seahawks gear. New Skyline Productions wants to know, if we wait for Jimmy G to go unsigned and pick him up, what do you think his contract will look like? Will we drop/trade Lock as well? Okay, so let's break that down in 2 parts here. Let's start out with Jimmy G. Obviously, the Seahawks are not going to be trading for Jimmy Garoppolo as is. He would have to be released and then be a free agent. And personally, I think when it's all said and done at the end of the day, this quarterback room as is in Seattle will not stay put. I think that they will make a move for whether it be Jimmy Garoppolo or Baker Mayfield, one of the two. And James Garoppolo here is somebody that I think, if he's released, could probably not cost you a whole lot, maybe around $10 million on a 1-year deal if he's released and available that way. And for Jimmy, unlike Baker Mayfield, Baker's getting his $18 million no matter what. In Jimmy Garoppolo's case, if he is caught before week 1, then he will only be paid $1.5 million. So Jimmy will be looking for that money, but with the way that teams are limited with cap space now, this late in the ball game here, I think that's what it would cost Jimmy G at this point, what it would cost you, about a $10 million contract for a 1-year deal. Will the Seahawks bring in another quarterback before the season begins? I think so. What do you guys say? Let me know in the comments section. Type Y for yes, type in for no if the Seahawks are going to make a move one way or another for a quarterback this offseason. Y for yes, in for no if you think the Seahawks will bring in another quarterback before the 2022 season begins. And if they bring in another quarterback, you know that we're going to be all over it here on Seahawks Today, covering this team like no one else does here on the channel as we bring you nonstop Seahawks coverage, counting down to kickoff each and every day. Subscribe now. Tell all your friends. Make sure they're subscribed as well. YouTube.com/Seahawks TV. That's YouTube.com/Seahawks TV. Turn on those notifications as well. Next question comes in from Jared. Jared wants to know, yes, we are going to Jared here. What would you say a good over-under for Jamal Adams sacks next season is? You know, that's interesting. And I might be a little high on this, actually. I think a good over-under, I would put it at about 3 for Jamal Adams. I mean, Because if you think about it, if he plays all 17 games now that we have this expanded schedule, if he's healthy the entire time, and he says he's comfortable, that he's excited about this new scheme, reminds him of the scheme he ran at LSU, if you let him just kind of run wild, then maybe he could get 4 or 5 sacks if he plays all those games. I think that's possible. But I could see a lot of different scenarios where we see less than that, quite frankly. So I would set the line at 3. That might be a little high, but it's a good question. I'd be very curious to see how that plays out. Another question. This one comes in from Darren. Darren wants to know, offensive and defensive line evaluation, please, because I have no idea who's on our roster at those positions. Well, the nerds at Pro Football Focus this week did not speak very highly of the Seahawks offensive and defensive lines. The offensive line was ranked 32nd in the NFL, while the defensive line was ranked 29th in the league. You look at the offense, you have some young guys with Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas that come from air raid systems in college. They will take time to develop and have to learn how to run block, but I think they're going to be a lot better towards the end of the year. You look at the defensive side of the ball. Poona Ford needs a running mate there. I'd be curious to see if they make a move to find him a partner there on that defensive line. Also, I really love what they did drafting Boy Mafe out of Minnesota. I think he's going to be a guy that develops and really turns into something as an edge rusher there. But I would say that there's foundational pieces, but they still have a long ways to go, both on the offensive and defensive line. Last question. How much C could a Seahawk hawk if a Seahawk could hawk C? Here is the answer, folks. A Seahawk could see what a Seahawk could see if a Seahawk could hawk C. Did I get that right? Probably not. I probably messed that up. As the old saying goes, what is it? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? He'd chuck all the wood if a woodchuck could chuck wood. So that's where I guess it comes from, but I get where you're coming at. I like the creativity there. I came up maybe a little bit short. If I got it right, like the video. If I didn't, tell me I got it wrong. But nonetheless, thanks for watching. Appreciate you joining us. Have a great weekend here on Seahawks Today.